Hi, I'm Sally, and our yin practice today is a beautiful practice of unwinding, of grounding, of releasing and coming home to ourselves. You'll need a few props for this, and you also might want to set up your space. So maybe dim the lights, you could light some candles, you might like to light some incense or even put some music on. You'll need a couple of blocks. If you've got them, yoga blocks are great. If you haven't, then some hard Tupperware is a good substitute. You'll need a blanket for this practice and either a yoga bolster or a couple of cushions. If you don't have a yoga bolster at home, 2 or 3 cushions will do the job. So get your space set up, come to the mat and enjoy. So we're going to start our yin practice today in supported supta baddha konasana. So grabbing one of your bricks, place one end of the bolster on the block and the other on the floor. Now, if you don't have a bolster at home or bricks, you can just do this lying on your back with no bolster. Totally fine. So coming to sit at the end of the bolster and lying back. So your head and your neck are fully supported here. You can bring the soles of feet together and have the knees wide, or you can stretch the legs straight out in front of you. Just take a moment to settle into your space. Just allowing yourself to arrive into this space, arriving into this pose. Arriving onto the mat. And there's no agenda for this practice. We're not here to stretch. We're not here to find calm. This is simply a space to be with body and breath. No need to breathe in any particular way here. Just allow the breath to move naturally in and out of your body. Passive, natural breath, flowing in and out like a wave. And allowing the body to soften down here a little. Notice any places where you might be gripping, where you might be bracing. See if you can let go just a little bit more. Letting your mind, your focus, lightly rest on the breath. Just watching the breath as it moves in and out of your body. And you might feel it most in the ribs or the belly, or maybe even in the nostrils. But wherever that is for you, just let the mind rest on that place. Simply watching the breath as it flows in and out of the body. Yin is a practice of unwinding, of letting go, of release. We come into gentle poses supported by props. And we hold them for around about 5 minutes or so. Just giving the body a chance to soften down, to start to shed tension. And giving the mind a chance to soften too. Starting to let go physically and to let go mentally. So we have another minute left in this pose. And as I give you the time left in each pose today, just notice your gut reaction. If that minute feels like an eternity, that might be your cue to ease off. If you feel like you could stay in the pose forever, you might drop deeper. There's no wrong way to be here. Just adjust and move to suit your body. To come out of this shape, just very gently roll off your bolster, off your cushions, rolling onto your side. And so in between each pose, we'll take transition shapes or movements. So you might come to lie on your back here. You could sit up. You could lie on your side. There's no wrong way to transition, so any way that feels right to you, feel free to be or move in that way. Let's let the eyes soften closed and let any sensations from that shape just drift off. And then when you feel ready, coming onto hands and knees. So the next pose we'll take today is Anahata asana, melting heart pose. So starting on hands and knees, your hips stay high. So keep the bum up in the air, walking the hands forward until your chest and your forehead come to the floor. Now you might like to support the forehead here. You could place a block or a blanket underneath the forehead. And maybe a bolster underneath the chest for a little support too. Stretching the arms out in front. And coming into a place of stillness here. Bringing your focus, bringing your mind back to the breath. So your mind is going to wander off dozens of times as we practice. It probably already has. And that's a very human thing. Mind is made to think. It's very natural, it's very human. So when you catch the mind wandering off, when you catch yourself going elsewhere, just notice. Gently come back to watching the breath. No judgment. It's coming home to the breath. And it's simple, but it's not easy, I know. That's why we call it a practice. So every time you catch yourself going somewhere else, let go of judgment and come home to the breath. Giving the mind a chance to quieten down, even if it's just for a few seconds. And as much as you can, bringing the body into a place of relative stillness. We're never 100% still. Of course, even in the very depths of sleep, we're always moving gently with the breath, changing and shifting in very subtle ways. But as much as you can, just notice that urge to move. See if you can let it pass. Just letting the body settle into a place of stillness. And allowing the tension that you're holding to start to let go. We have one last minute in this shape. Slowly start to ease yourself out of this shape. A child's pose is a nice counter pose here, sinking your butt back over the heels. You could sit up. You could lie on your belly. You might come to hands and knees and just roll through the spine. There's no wrong way to transition. However you need to move, however you need to be, that's perfect. When you're ready, bring yourself up to sit. So for the next pose, we'll take supported fish. So grab your bolster and have it sideways on your mat. If you don't have a bolster at home, you can use a couple of cushions, and you're aiming for a good height. So a couple of cushions stacked on top of each other should work. You could also use a block lengthways between the shoulder blades. So sitting in front of the bolster, you want to be fairly close to it, so an inch or two away from the bolster. And we're going to lie back over it. And you're aiming for the middle of the shoulder blades here. Now, if your head touches the ground, that's great. If it doesn't, grab a brick or a cushion underneath to support. So head and neck is supported, lying back over the bolster. Keeping your bum on the floor. If there's pressure on the lower back or the bum is lifting off the ground here, use your blanket underneath to support. Either soles of feet together, knees wide, or you can stretch the legs out in front. You can also bend the knees and have the feet on the floor here. When you found a position, when you found a setup that works for your body, it's dropping into a place of stillness. Bringing focus back to the breath. And allowing yourself to drop a little deeper into the pose every time you breathe out. So yin is a practice for me, it's a practice of unwinding. Starting to unwind physical tension that we hold in the body, in the soft tissues, the muscles, the fascia. And starting to unwind mentally as well. So we come into these shapes supported by props. And that allows the softer tissues to start to soften, to start to shed some of the physical tension they're carrying. And I say start because it's a process. It's not a kind of one and done type practice. It's taken years, decades maybe, to build up the tension in the body. So it's the starting of a process. We're starting to unwind here. But we're working deeper than a physical level here. We're working too into the nervous system. You might have heard people talking about down-regulating. What we mean by that is bringing the nervous system, bringing the body into a place of calm. Moving out of that highly stressed response into a place of rest, of healing, of repair. And we're also working on a mental level. The very simple act of watching the breath, it allows the mind not to fully quieten down, but to maybe just quieten down for a few seconds. I don't think it's possible to empty your mind, and that's not really the goal here. It's just to find a little bit of quiet, a little bit of mental space as well as physical space. We have one last minute in this shape. Now, the safest way to come out of this shape is to very slowly and carefully roll onto your side. Don't try and sit straight up. Just rolling onto your side, being careful of your neck. And you might stay lying on your side. You could come to sit up. You might choose to lie on your back. It's coming off the bolster or the block or your cushions, giving your spine a chance to settle back to its neutral position. And then when you feel ready, just slowly come up to a seated position. So the next shape we'll take today is deer pose. You might need your blanket for this. So starting in a seated position, have your right leg forward, your knee is in line with your hip, and your shin is roughly at 90 degrees. Your left leg is out to the side, and again, knee in line with hip, knee at 90 degrees. And you can see I'm kind of slumping over a little bit. If that's the same for you, grab your blanket, just wedge it under the side of your bum. You might like your bolster in front of you or cushions. We're going to fold forward. So folding over the right thigh. And find a way, if you can, to support the head and neck. So you might like a block tower on the bolsters. You might use your arms. Supporting your head and neck in any way that works for you. It's taking your time to find the setup that works. Settling into this shape. It's noticing the places in your body where you might be gripping, where you might be bracing a little. See if you can soften here and let go just a little bit more. And every time the mind wanders off, you might hear a sound in the room where you're practicing. A thought might pop up. Every time you start to wander off, you start to think about something, just gently notice and come back to the breath. There's no judgment. You're going to wander off dozens of times as we practice. It's coming home to the breath, that simple, powerful reminder to stay in the present moment. We can slow the breath down, but we'll never stop that next breath from coming. And it's a really powerful reminder that thoughts, that emotions that we feel, that they come and go as well. Sometimes we're in the middle of something heavy, feels like it will never end. That very simple act of watching the breath, it brings us into the present moment, and it reminds us that everything will pass. So let the body soften here. And let the mind rest on the movement of breath. We have 1 more minute on this side. To come out, just slowly roll up through the spine. Take your time. You can straighten the legs out in front of you here. You might like to bend the knees, give the knees a swing from side to side. Just move or be in any way that you need to. When you're ready, we'll come into the other side. So left leg forward this time. Knee at 90 degrees, knee in line with your hip. Right leg is out to the side, and again, knee in line with the hip, knee at 90 degrees. If you feel like you're slumping over, then maybe support with a blanket, and you're going to fold. So folding down to the bolster, cushions, to blocks, whatever you've got, it doesn't matter. Supporting the head and neck in some way. Just adjusting the pose to fit your body, not the other way around. And when you've found a shape that works for you, just drop into that place of stillness. Let yourself go just a little bit more every time you breathe out. There's a sense of allowing here. We have to let ourselves let go. We have to let ourselves unwind. Sometimes we can grip on to the physical tension or the mental tension because it's all we know. It's what we're used to. So go to the places in the body where you feel sensation, where you know that you carry tension. And allow them to soften a little bit more every time you breathe out. We have 1 more minute on this side. Slowly start to roll up through the spine. Just taking any movement that feels right here. Straightening the legs out in front, swinging the knees, whatever you need to do. Just allowing the body to reset and come back to its neutral position. And then when you're ready, come down to lie on your belly. So the next pose we're going to take is my favorite pose of all time, half frog. Basically my favorite because it involves lying on your belly. So come to lie on your belly. And you might like a blanket under the forehead. You can make a little pillow with the hands. And we'll start with the left leg, drawing the left knee up so it's in line with your hip. Knee at 90 degrees, toes turned out to the side. Keep the forehead down. And if you want to go a little deeper into sensation, just send the knee further away from the body. Settling into a place of stillness here. Bringing the focus back to the breath. This practice is so much more than a physical practice. It's a practice of returning home to ourselves. Starting to unwind the layers, the noise, all the things that we fill our lives with to disrupt ourselves, to distract ourselves. Busyness, the overscheduling, social media. This practice is about giving ourselves space, physical space in the body, but mental space too. And the way that we live our lives, giving ourselves space to rest, to repair, it's often the last thing on the list. It's not even on the list most of the time. Giving yourself this space, this sacred pause to physically rest, to reset the nervous system, to mentally rest. It's fundamental to being alive. So let yourself drop a little deeper into this shape. Bring the focus back to the breath. We have 1 more minute in this shape. Start to draw the leg down so it's straight out behind you. You might bend the knees and give the feet a swing here. You might just shimmy the hips from side to side, whatever you need to reset. When you're ready, we'll come into the other side. So right leg draws up this time. It's in line with your hip, knee at 90 degrees. Toes turned out to the side. Settling down into this shape. Finding a place of stillness, of relative stillness. coming home to the breath. We have 1 more minute on this side. Just gently start to ease the leg back behind you and take any movement that feels right here, bending the knees, shimmying the hips, and give the feet a swing. Just letting the spine, letting the hips settle back to a neutral position. And when you're ready, slowly come up to sit. So the next shape we'll finish with today before Shavasana is Dragonfly. And it's a seated straddle. So either sitting on the floor, or if you find it hard to fold forward for any reason, and that could be tight hamstrings, if you run or cycle, that might be you. You might have issues in the lower back or a belly to navigate. Sit up on something. So even sitting on a blanket that's been folded a few times, or a block or a cushion, it will just give you a little bit more space around the pelvis, a bit more space to fold. So legs out wide, have a bolster or blocks or cushions in front of you, and we're going to fold forward. So folding down so your head and neck are supported. You might use your arms, blocks, cushions, whatever you've got, anything to support the head and neck, it's all good. Letting yourself settle down into this shape. Finding that place of stillness. Letting yourself drop down a little bit deeper every time you breathe out. Let go just a little bit more. There's infinite layers to every pose. There's infinite depths. There's no end goal here. Just allow yourself to drop in deeper with every breath out. We have 1 more minute in this shape. To come out, just slowly roll up through the spine. Just soften the legs back together. Hands behind you on the floor. Leaning back into the hands. You might roll the head from side to side here. You might swing the knees. It's whatever feels right to you. And when you feel ready, come down to lie on your back. And we'll finish our practice with Shavasana. So you might like bolsters or cushions under your knees here. You might like a blanket under the head. It's taking your time to get super comfortable here. We'll be here for around about 5 minutes or so. So make sure that you're warm. Make sure that you're comfortable taking any little wriggles or shuffles to get that little bit more cozy. Letting go of effort. Let yourself drop a little deeper into the floor. Let go of breath. And let go. start to deepen your breath. Just bring little movements back to hands and feet, starting really small. And then stretching out in any way that feels good. You might reach out long. You might bend the knees and swing them from side to side. And then rolling onto one side. Just pausing there for a moment. Slowly bringing yourself up to sit. Sitting any way that's comfortable for you. It doesn't have to be crossed legs. Keep the eyes closed. Take a breath in through your nose and let it go through the mouth. One more like that. Feel the ribs. And just let go. Bring your hands together at the heart. Bowing your head. Acknowledging the space that you've made for yourself, for your mind, for your body. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.